Searching for a new home can be a ton of fun. You get to look at different options and kind of hone in on what you're really looking for, things that you like and dislike about different homes. But once you find the home that you want to purchase, then what? Things get a little bit more serious. It's time to write an offer. Stay tuned and I'll walk you through the purchase contract and what that's all about and what that entails. Stay tuned. You've heard the old saying, it's all conversation unless it's in writing. Once you've found the home you want, it's time to make an offer. I'm Kelley Knitz of the Kelley Knitz Team, and I'm going to walk you through the whole process of making an offer on the home of your dreams. And we're going to go over the Toledo Board of Realtors offer to purchase contract. And that contract, incidentally, is 5 pages long with 28 separate paragraphs. And I know it sounds like a lot, but it's all in there for your protection. I'm not an attorney, and I'm not offering legal advice. And actually, in this offer to purchase, there's a paragraph about your opportunity to have an attorney review the contract during the negotiation process or once you have an accepted offer. Here's a brief description of everything in the offer to purchase that our board uses. Number one is just the declaration that this is an offer. Secondly, you want to put a description of the property in the offer. You want to put the legal description, the parcel number, the address, anything you have to identify the property. Usually, the price is the next number 3, but I like to save that for last because that is a kind of a long discussion for me. We want to make sure that we're putting the right offer in initially. So then we collect earnest money once there is an agreement on price and terms, and we have that in our offer to purchase because sometimes somebody might put down $100 or $500, maybe $1,000. Sometimes I've seen $10,000 down as your earnest money. And the reason why that's important is because the stronger or the more money you have down, the stronger that makes your offer appear. So if you're in a multiple offer situation, it looks good if you have $1,000 or more down for your earnest money. And then also there's a financing clause in there which basically protects you if you are going for financing and you can't get financing for some reason, then of course you can't buy the property, so it is subject to your getting financing, and then you should get your earnest money returned back to you if you can't get the home because you weren't able to get financing. But usually people do get pre-approved before they start looking. Then there's a paragraph about the appraisal. The house has to appraise at or above purchase price, and it states it right in the purchase contract. So if it doesn't appraise at the purchase price, then you're back to the negotiating table. And then we talk about closing and possession. When is the closing date? And how long are you going to give these people time to move their things out of this house? Typically, it's kind of customary in our area to give the seller 30 days after closing. But when I'm representing a buyer, I like to ask for possession at closing like they do in the rest of the country, because I feel if you're making that big investment, you want the key when you close because you don't want somebody else living in your house while you own it. Even though that is a little bit customary in this area, that happens a lot. But I like to try to get you possession right at closing. And then there's an inspection clause, and typically you get 10 to 14 days to have a whole house inspection done or any other kind of inspection that you want to have. And if you do find something wrong with the property that could cost several $1,000s or a big ticket item or something that affects the habitability of the home, then you can go back at the seller within the time frame set forth and renegotiate. And then there's an area that talks about sex offenders. And it gives you the right to search public records or use websites that are available for you to look and see if there are any sex offenders close to the area of the home that you're buying. One of those sites is www.familywatchdog.com. Also, there's an area that talks about property insurance. Sometimes if a property is not in very good condition, an insurance company might not cover it. So you want to make sure to be able to get your earnest money back. And so we have this clause in here that talks about being able to terminate the agreement if you can't get it insured. And there's a clause in here about flood insurance. Many times it's not disclosed, but not purposely, that the property is in a floodplain. And you don't find out until a few weeks into the process that it's in a floodplain, which could affect the cost of your insurance. And under that circumstance, you have the right to cancel the contract also. There's a clause in here about a home warranty, and you have the right to ask for a home warranty. A home warranty typically is marketed by the seller when they put the house on the market. It's a good idea. They pan out probably 60% of the time, but we'll get into home warranties on another video. Then the condition of the property, the seller has to disclose any defects that they are aware of with the property on their state property disclosure form. And so that's in there to protect you also. If you did not get a copy of the state property disclosure form, you have to write down that you did not receive that on the purchase contract because you're entitled to see it. Actually, before you have an accepted offer, you should be looking at the state property disclosure. And then also, you have to be able to convey a clean deed to the purchaser. And number 16 talks about prorations and closing costs. So taxes are prorated one of two ways in this area, Lucas County method or due and payable method. All the other counties use the lien method. That's important because as a buyer, it determines what type of a credit you're going to get on the HUD for the next tax bill, because chances are, while you're living in the home, you're going to receive the next tax bill that comes, and the seller will have owned the house a portion of that time that is included in your tax bill. So you want to make sure that you get a credit for the time that the seller of the home was in the house. And they'll prorate it. So then you'll get that credit on the closing statement, and you'll get a higher credit if it's the lien method and a smaller credit if it's the due and payable method, which is Lucas County method. It's kind of used as a negotiating tool sometimes also. And then you have the opportunity to pick who you want the title company to be. If you are comfortable with a certain company, you can fill in that company, or you can use whoever your realtor recommends. Then the seller has to represent whether they know of any unpaid bills that could be attached to the house. For instance, the water bill. They have to disclose that or represent that there are no unpaid bills attached to the property. And then there's a broker disclaimer. Basically, what that means is that you are acknowledging that we as real estate salespeople are not mortgage people, we are not home inspectors, we are not title people, and you should not rely on that type of expertise from us. We are experts in selling real estate. You should rely on a proper professional for each area of the transaction. There are also termination procedures. So if you have an inspection issue, there's a procedure that you go through to actually get out of the contract. And then the property maintenance and utilities, the seller is required to keep all of the utilities on all the way up until the day of possession. It states it right in the purchase contract because the buyer doesn't want to have to pay a fee to turn the utilities on. It can easily just be transferred from the seller to the buyer. So I always make sure that the seller is aware of that we do not want to have a shut off of the utilities. And then it talks about this form is actually made by the Toledo Bar Association for the Toledo Board of Realtors. And we all use it interchangeably. There are a few companies that don't, but most of us use this form. A very important part of the purchase contract is that you do have an attorney's review paragraph in here that talks about having the right to have your attorney review this contract within 3 days, not including weekends, so that you make sure that you have all of your rights protected and it's filled out properly. There is also a section for you to write in additional terms, and it's just some blank lines, and each house is going to have different terms that you might put in. One of the more common terms is that you want to write in possibly that the seller is to pay a certain amount of dollars towards your closing costs. And it really helps out a lot of buyers because they don't want to use up all their cash. They want to maybe have the seller pay for their closing costs portion of it so that you can use your cash to maybe put new carpet in or paint or something you want to do with the house. And then, there's your signature line, of course, and so everybody signs the agreement, and once everything is all agreed upon and signed, that's when the earnest money is collected. Incidentally, there's also a paperless form of this contract in our program we call Dot Loop. So many times you'll be doing this paperlessly, and then when you come to an agreement, your realtor should make sure you get a copy of anything that you signed. As you can see, there's a lot of detail involved with an offer to purchase. I always recommend that you see an attorney as soon as you get an accepted offer. Get that offer to purchase over to the attorney for their review. I'd like to thank you for watching and allowing me to share this information with you. If you liked the information and thought it was useful, please click the like button. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel subscribe below, or if you have any comments or questions, please let me know and write them below, and I will get the answers to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.